Hello, hello, the doc is in, and welcome back to another chapter of One Punch Man, chapter 164, The Abominable Fist That Turned Against God. And let me just say, as tends to be the case, I was not expecting us to get a chapter this week, truth be told, because this time especially, it was like last week we got a bonus chapter, which was decently length. I read through it. I didn't get to make a video about it. I was actually going to do that today, but now we have an actual chapter, so I guess we'll postpone that. I mean, both chapters don't need to be on time per se. So, yeah. Last chapter, we basically just had Saitama trolling Garou as he continues to transform and get stronger, but still can't beat Saitama because, of course, he can't. And so, here we are continuing with the fight. So, first part of the chapter, well, first panel or two, we basically have the people who are evacuating. We got them talking to people, trying to get everybody out of there, and they notice Pig God in the ocean. They think he's a dead corpse, but then he flips over, and they're like, oh, it's Pig God. And it seems like everybody who's currently in his stomach, which actually, when you think about it, that's a lot of people for him to not be particularly large. It's kind of weird, but neither here nor there. But, yeah. But after that, basically, it's like a little bit of a gag moment / confirmation of like what's going on with them. And under that, we get right back into Garou versus Saitama. So we have Garou in his new upgraded form, which kind of looks like a beetle kind of creature thing got going on, and he's throwing a mad punches at Saitama. And obviously Saitama's kind of just dodging it. And so as we see Garou throwing all these attacks, he's basically like thinking about, okay, like what can I use to defeat this guy? And we see him acting out different ideas. So he starts off with technique. Technique is good, and he can get around Saitama, but it's not working. So he tries speed. Speed's not working. More power in his attacks. That's not working. So this time he's just throw out more attacks, and maybe he'll just lose. I would think that'd be speed, but neither here nor there. And we have Saitama just having a fun time dodging the attacks. He's kind of just making fun of the idea that, oh, he's throwing so many punches that it looks like he has more hands. You know, the anime thing. You're hitting so fast, it looks like you have multiple hands at the same time. But actually, it turns out he just actually has multiple hands. He has 4 arms at this point. If you watch Ben 10 reference, is it 4 arms? I think it is. But point is, it looks pretty baller in this form, but obviously it's still not doing anything. And so realizing that his extra attacks by, I imagine, growing extra arms didn't help, he's now decided, okay, let me just be really creative with my attacks. So then he proceeds to turn into a fighter jet like Monster King Orochi. Alright, like I cannot stress, like you look at this panel, I'll put the picture up, like let's look, like at first when I first saw it, I thought like, oh, he's gonna grab him, he's gonna hit him with some like crush attack into his body or something. I mean, I thought the weird form was weird. It looks so aerodynamic. I don't know. It literally looks like a fighter jet. But he just goes with the fighter jet idea. He's like, you know what? No attack, just fighter jet. And he uses his... Apparently he has energy projection of some form because his hands turn on fire and then he starts flying away in this... Well, with Saitama in his front arm. So he has 2 arms back that are shooting energy blasts in the back of him. And 2 arms... holding Saitama. He's basically pushing him into the planet. And the name of the attack is Extreme Power Attack. And I will say the name kind of sucks. Not the greatest name ever. But the power of this attack is it's very comparable to its name. Basically, Garou then proceeds to take Saitama from the middle of the air where they were fighting and push him into a mountain, then pushes him so hard and he's going so fast with so much force that he literally, it's like, how would I put it? It's like when you get like those air bubbles on like food or something, like let's say a pizza, like if you push it, it'll just indent. He basically did that with the mountain. He pushed the mountain inward. Then it goes even further. Apparently, he pushed so hard that it sent shockwaves through the entire Earth, pretty much to the other side of the planet. I'm like, what is going on? This is ridiculous. And from there, we just cut away. Just cut away. I mean, I was in peak hype at that moment, but he decided to just cool me off real quick. I'm like, why do you do that? And basically, have some more people evacuating, people on a boat. Well, actually, I think they're flying, and then the plane crashed. Point is, people are evacuating somewhere else, and And as we're seeing them trying to evacuate, we have some people going on the boats, and like the elderly person basically pushes back children and teachers and blah blah blah, and he gets on the boat, right? And because of the shockwave, from my understanding, the shockwave is so powerful and so large that effectively what happened was that though the plane crashed in the water, because of the shockwave, it indented the planet, and then all the water from the area they crash landed in, because they were flying overseas, went away, and everybody who was on the boat fell into a giant waterfall that was just created suddenly. I'm like, that's ridiculous. I mean, this is my interpretation of it. I don't quite understand this panel. Point is, it's crazy. Then, from there, as we move on from the shock faces of regular civilians, we then have another peak of hype, which I didn't even think would happen. Like, when I was reading the chapter, I was like, whoa, this is kind of crazy. It took me like 2 seconds to be like, oh shoot, is that Blast again? Are you serious? And not only that, but his boys, the Galactic Federation, has pulled up as well. I guess Dimensional Federation. And basically, Blast is talking about how the space around Earth is distorting and whatnot. It like opens up a portal to like see the Earth, and he's like, hey yo, why is the planet swelling? And I'm like, that's a great question. Why is the planet swelling? That does not make sense. And then we get to see one of the people who are a part of the dimensional groups, and I'm not saying she's hot. I'm just saying she's bad as hell. But neither here nor there. She's basically explaining it, and she's basically like, oh, it could be like, I don't know, maybe like a really big tremor or something. And then the person under them, well, the person under that panel, we got a Boros lookalike. All right, it has to be the same race. It's definitely not Boros because Boros died, very obviously. But yeah, I'm like, what? And he's like, oh, who could it possibly be? And then we got another person who's basically a furry, not like wears animal clothes, but just anthropomorphic animal. And he's basically like, oh, well, a human couldn't have possibly done it. It must be a tectonic shift or something, just really strong one, I guess. And then after they had this, like, the side members kind of have like this mini discussion, then we have Blast basically be like, oh, well, that bastard is going to break the dimensional seal, we got to repair it. And then they teleport away. But this, at first I thought, oh, they must be talking about Garou. They're going to pull up on Garou and they're going to try to fight him. But another possibility is that they're talking about God, and that the actions of Garou are leading to a possibility of God breaking out at this moment. That's what they're going to go repair. They're actually going to show up to the fight. I mean, either one could be possible, based on how this chapter goes, but we'll continue. That's the end of their little saga, and we cut back to Garou pushing right through the planet, and Saitama is basically like, alright, let me get a little serious, and he retaliates with consecutive normal punches, and he punches his way out of the hole that Garou created in like a little spiral motion, and Garou's just like, I have two sets of arms with two sets of fists, yet I still can't out-punch a guy with just two arms. What's the deal? And as Garou's getting assaulted and bombarded with punches, he's thinking about the line that Sage Centipede was talking about, how these two, how him and Evil Natural Ocean were sent down by God to defeat the one whose fist turned against God. And he was like, and obviously all of us thought, oh, we're talking about Garou. Garou's crazy. And then Garou's like, no. It couldn't have possibly been me, because it has to be this guy. As we see a clean, well-drawn punch straight to the jaw by Saitama. I'm like, hey, yo, this is different. This is very different. And once again, as in Saitama fashion, he sends him flying with another feat, sends him from one mountain that he destroyed, and then sends Garou flying through mountain ranges, plural, cutting through the mountains. I'm like, what is going on? And after that nice, clean punch to the jaw, Garou just laying there in the middle of the ocean or wherever, and he's just kind of laying there. Saitama's like, you satisfied yet? I'm like, Saitama, since when you been such a baller? I thought you were just chill and just beat up dudes. Like, he's pulling up on Garou with different energy than I'm used to, and I'm here for it. And we get a little bit of inner monologue from Garou. He's basically like, well, I'm all out of ideas at this point. I mean, I've tried technique, power, speed, creativity, I got nothing. And he's basically like, dang, my dreams of becoming the absolute evil have truly fallen apart, and all because of the fist of one man. But he's not just any man. He's Saitama. You bum. You just don't understand. He's not understood it yet. Saitama's our Lord and Savior. Just accept it. Oh, and then after Garou kind of comes to acceptance of the idea that maybe his dreams just weren't meant to be, he basically like thinks like, oh, perhaps, maybe did I just want to commit suicide as the ultimate evil, possibly? And Saitama's basically like, bro, you can't be serious. I literally just beat the hell out of you. Like, you clearly have to have realized that I've won the fight. There's no reason why you're still fighting me. And then in the final part of the chapter, basically have Garou kind of like pseudo admitting defeat and being like, oh, you're gonna cut me down so that you could be the ultimate hero or whatever, in essence, or just be like a true hero, etc. And Saitama's like, you clearly have like some unresolved issues with heroes or whatever. Let's talk about it. And he's like, you know what? Let me take you to my house, my shrink house. And the end of the chapter is this, once again, beautifully drawn panel where we have Garou sitting on his knees, looking all I don't even know how I would describe it, but not ashamed, but like, you know, looking all like a teenager. A teenager just got in trouble who has to like explain themselves. This time I was over here sitting like a school counselor, like, come on, why'd you do it? And we have the moon and likely by extension God kind of looking at them. And that is the end of the chapter. And I cannot stress that was an amazing chapter. I may have screamed maybe once or twice while reading the chapter because it was just that hype. Like, as the chapter was going on, I was like, whoa, it's crazy. And yeah, I mean, it's a really good chapter. Once again, I'd probably give it a 10 out of 10, to be honest. That's just me. I give it a 10 out of 10. But I don't even know, there's a lot to discuss, really. Let's just hop right into it. So first off, I presume this is the end of the Garou versus Saitama fight. Well, it likely is. I mean, there's a couple of different ways this could possibly go. Where we start off with is that, well, clearly at this point, Saitama's gotten Garou's already acknowledged that he's not going to beat Saitama. It's just not going to happen. That's for one. And so now he's sitting with Saitama, so they're not going to talk. Now, of course, Garou can always just be like, you know, I changed my mind. I don't want to listen to you. I'll fight you now. It's like, I mean, it's possible, but he's already realized that he's just not going to win. So, I mean, if it does happen, it'd be cool, but I don't know. Then we have the stuff with Blast and his comrades. Now, it seems like there are two ways this could go. Either they're going to stop the rift from whatever dimensional rift was being created from continuing and then stop God from coming, or they're going to close up the rift, then they're going to come fight Garou. Those are the two options. Now, conceptually, I don't think Garou can, beat Blast or his comrades. I mean, that's a 4v1. I mean, Garou's very strong, but I still feel like even at this point, Tatsumaki could probably handle him. So the idea that Blast, who's the number one hero, who's considered by and large to be the absolute strongest, is showing up, I mean, I highly doubt he could win. So I don't know. It could really go either way. I mean, obviously, Garou can still upgrade. I mean, he's been upgrading this entire time. He's likely de facto the strongest monster at this time in the series. So that's another thing to think about. And I suppose that's kind of it. I mean, there's a lot of theorizing that could be done on this, but it really would just all come down to, like, what do One and Murata want to do with the next steps? Because based on the webcomic, right, not to spoil or anything, like ideas, but effectively the fight kind of continues to a further point, and initially it kind of seemed like that's where it was going, where it seemed like, okay, Garou's getting backed into a corner, so he's going to start doing this thing that happened in the webcomic, and then boom, there we go. But based on this, it seems like we kind of circumvented that entire part of the fight to go in a different direction. In addition to that, Blast showing up at all this chapter was a complete surprise, and I was definitely not expecting him to show up. So currently we have like a lot of extra stuff going on, which has always been the case with the manga versus the webcomic, where the manga adds a lot more things going on and kind of plays into a lot more plot threads in a more interesting way, and it doesn't allow big fights that happen in the webcomic to be exactly the same in the manga. So I mean, we could still hit the same beats here, but they could also decide that they want to go in a completely different direction, where, you know, maybe they just decide, okay, so Tama's gonna talk to Garou, he's gonna realize whatever, and then that's how you end the arc. I mean, I don't know. There's a lot of ways we could take this, but I think that is about it for the chapter. Great chapter, and yeah. Leave a like on the video if you liked the video. Leave a dislike on the video if you disliked it. Leave a comment. How do you feel about the current going on between Saitama versus Garou? Is the fight over? Is the fight not over? Just drop a comment. If you like the videos, subscribe. I'll do more stuff like this regularly, you know. And with that all being said, thank you again for watching the video, and the doc is out. Peace.